Thank you for joining me this evening. Today we're going to be in Matthew chapter 1, starting at verse 18. Our suggested memory verse this week is found in Matthew 1, verse 21. It says, "And she shall bring forth a son, and thou shalt call his name Jesus, for he shall save his people from their sins." And just for fun, you can draw a picture of an angel talking to Joseph in a dream, because he appeared to Joseph in a dream. And if you enjoy this, remember to like, share, and thank you for joining me today. So today we're going to start in Matthew 1, verse 18. We talked about Mary last week. Today we're going to focus on Joseph. Now, the birth of Jesus Christ was on this wise: when as his mother Mary was espoused to Joseph, before they came together, she was found with child of the Holy Ghost. And we talked about it last week. Remember, she's not married yet, but she's pregnant. This is important because it shows that Jesus' birth was miraculous. We go to verse 19 and it says, "Then Joseph, her husband, being a just man, not willing to make her a public example, was minded to put her away privately." And you have to remember right now, Joseph, all he knows is that this baby's not his. You think about it, how do you think he would feel? The woman he loves is pregnant, and he knows this child is not his. So he thinks that she's been unfaithful to him. So she's probably, at this point, he's probably hurt. He's probably feels betrayed. And I look at that, it says, not willing to make her a public example, was minded to put her away privily. And I believe that this shows that Joseph was just as honorable as Mary. A lot of people, when they get hurt, when they get mad, they seek revenge. They get angry and they let their anger take over and they do things they regret. But here, even though Joseph was hurt, he was considerate of Mary's feelings. He cared about Mary. How many times have we been hurt? We said things or we do things that we regret. So this shows that Joseph is able to control his feelings and his emotions. And I was thinking about that because there's a verse in Proverbs. It says, "Even a fool, when he holdeth his peace, is counted wise." So somebody that can keep their mouth shut and be quiet is considered wise. Even though Joseph was hurt, he was able to control his tongue. This shows that he was a wise man. Now, we talked about Jewish weddings last week, and even though they're not really married yet, they're betrothed. And in order to break this, it requires a divorce. And he could have really hurt her here, but he wanted to keep her as secret as he could. He didn't want to embarrass Mary. He didn't want to embarrass her family. He's shocked, he's surprised that she's pregnant, he's confused, but he's really trying to do the right thing here. And then we go to verse 20. And verse 20 says, "But while he thought on these things, behold, the angel of the Lord appeared unto him in a dream." Okay, so I'm gonna look at this slide right here. This is gonna be kind of tricky. This says, "An angel appeared to Joseph in a dream." Okay, so The angel appeared to Joseph in a dream. Now remember, we read last time in Luke 1:27, um, the angel came to a virgin espoused to a man whose name was Joseph of the house of David, and the virgin's name was Mary. So here, the angel appeared unto Mary. Um, and so the angel appeared to Joseph in a dream, but the angel also appeared to Mary. Okay, and so we going back to verse 20, it says, "But while he thought on these things, behold, the angel of the Lord appeared unto him in a dream, saying, Joseph, thou son of David, fear not to take unto thee Mary thy wife." So we look at this, and so the next thing that the angel says, it says, "Fear not." And if we remember, over here in Luke 1:30, when the angel was talking to Mary, the angel said unto her, "Fear not." So the angel said the same thing to Mary. The angel said to Mary, "Fear not." Okay. So it says this angel appeared unto Joseph. It says, "Fear not to take unto thee Mary thy wife, for that which is conceived in her is of the Holy Ghost." This angel appears unto him, and it might be Gabriel. I'm thinking it was probably Gabriel, but it doesn't really say the angel's name here. But this is when Joseph finds out what's really happening. This is when Joseph realizes what's going on. The angel tells Joseph, this is a miracle that's happening to them. And the angel continues talking, and the angel said, "And she shall bring forth a son." Okay, so we look at our slideshow again. And so the angel told Joseph, she's going to have a son. And if we remember, there's a lot of buttons I have to click here, I'm sorry. Remember in Luke 1:31, when the angel was talking to Mary, it said, "And behold, thou shalt conceive in thy womb and bring forth a son." So this is also what the angel told Mary. The angel told Mary that she was going to have a son. Okay, and going back to this verse, "And thou shalt bring forth a son, and thou shalt call his name Jesus." So the angel tells Joseph, you are to name him Jesus. So right here, the angel told Joseph, you need to name him Jesus. And if we remember, when the angel was talking to Mary, "And thou shalt conceive, behold, thou shalt conceive in thy womb and bring forth a son, and thou shalt call his name Jesus." So the angel also told Mary to name him Jesus. Okay, so the angel is talking to Joseph right now. The angel tells him, she shall bring forth a son, thou shalt call his name Jesus. for he shall save his people from their sins. Now all this was done that it might be fulfilled which was spoken of the Lord by the prophet, saying, Behold, a virgin shall conceive with child, and shall bring forth a son, and they shall call his name Emmanuel, which being interpreted is God with us. So the angel's telling Joseph what's going on. The angel's telling Joseph Mary didn't violate his trust. Mary didn't break any laws. The angel's revealing that this is fulfilling the prophecy. And he tells Joseph what to name the child, Emmanuel, which is God with us. But all this helps Joseph understand what's happening. So it's important that the angel talked to Joseph, because Joseph was hurt. Joseph didn't know what was going on. So reading this verse, it's very clear to me that Mary must not have had a chance to speak with Joseph. And then we go to verse 24. And verse 24 says, Then Joseph, being raised from the sleep, did as the angel of the Lord had bidden him, and took unto him his wife, and knew her not till she had brought forth her firstborn son, and he called his name Jesus. And I was thinking about that. What does this say about Joseph? To me, this shows me that Joseph had great faith. Because Joseph listened to the angel. Joseph wasn't afraid anymore. He wasn't afraid to marry Mary. He trusted the angel, and he went and he married her, and he did as the angel said. And it shows me that Joseph had great faith. Now, if we look over here in Luke 1:38, it says, And Mary said, Behold, the handmaid of the Lord, be it unto me according to thy word. And you think, what does that say about Mary? To me, this showed that Mary also had great faith, because she told the angel, even though Mary knew everything that could happen, how much trouble she could be in, what everybody was going to think of her, she was willing to listen to the angel. She was willing to do what God wanted her to do. So it shows that she also had great faith. So if you look at Mary and Joseph, an angel appeared unto both of them. The angel told them, Fear not. Mary's going to have a son. You're going to name him Jesus. And it showed that they both had great faith. Thank you for joining me today. And remember our suggested memory verse. And she shall bring forth a son, and thou shalt call his name Jesus, for he shall save his people from their sins. Matthew 1:21. And just for fun, if you would like to draw a picture of the angel talking to Joseph, and if you enjoy this, remember to like, subscribe, and share. Thank you so much for watching.